So you want to start a collecting run from scratch. Are you crazy?
Well, I guess that makes me crazy too.
Where do you start? Today, I'm going to share tips and tools to start your run on the right path and pitfalls to avoid, so you can make your childhood dream into reality.
So let's go.
Everybody, welcome back to the journey. For the past 10 months, I've been going on a lifelong dream to collect the Kenner Star Wars vintage action figures made from 1977 to 1985. And I started that journey from complete scratch, complete zero. So if you want to go back and catch up on those episodes, please do. But before I started that run, before I bought a single figure, I made sure I had some things in place to make sure that it stayed fun and didn't turn into a plastic hell. So let's start where we should all start, at the beginning.
Part 1. Your focus. Even before you buy your first figure, there's things that you gotta do to set yourself up for success. The obvious one is deciding what toy line exactly that you want to collect. And I strongly advise going into your collection run with a focus. And by that I mean pick a toy line and be specific, and then stick to it.
For instance, don't just say, I want to collect He-Man. Say, I want to collect He-Man Masters of the Universe action figures made from 1980 to 1988. And then, after you decide that, make sure you research various checklists that others have made either online or in collecting groups. And we're going to get into collecting groups a little bit later. By looking at various checklists, you're going to see how other collectors have shaped their runs and figures that they consider essential in order to define a complete run. And before we go more into it, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more collecting content. If this was your first time doing a run, you may not even know every single action figure that was produced. There may have been mail-away offers or figures only available in certain playsets or regions, and some never carded.
Doing the research on the entire line before you start buying may open up ideas on how you're gonna shape your own collection run. And after you've researched what figures that you wanna buy, move on to this step. Step 2, watch videos in that collecting genre. And I only say this from experience, because before I started buying all my figures, I binge watched many content creators to find out what they're doing. And I must have done that for a solid 3 months before I bought a single figure. And I was hoping to find other collectors who had started collecting runs from scratch to find out how they did it, but I didn't. So I guess that's why I started this channel. But what you're gonna find is very useful tips about the history, maybe nuances about the accessories, how to care for them, or even tips on how to buy them. Whatever the case is, it won't hurt to do some binge watching before you start buying. And after you do all of that, if you still aren't scared about starting a collection, move on to this step. Step 3, making a checklist. And this is where it starts to get real. This is where you're a general and you're shaping your attack run. The most important thing about this step is that after you've done your homework in the previous steps, by now you should be comfortable knowing every single figure and perhaps nuances in that toy line.
Start by listing all the figures you want, and I would list them by release date, alphabetical order, or any way that makes sense for you to keep organized. In a past episode, I showed how I created my checklist, so if you want to go watch that after this episode, here's the link in the corner. And also, on my website at thepadawancollector.com, you can download the sheet I use for free, either in a PDF, PowerPoint, or Apple Keynote. That checklist won't be free for long, so make sure you head on over there and download it soon. You can also find databases online that use clear pictures of the figures and use those for your checklist. Also, place down as much info on the figure as you want, such as the official name, release date, and accessories that it came with.
And a big tip.
Place boxes. These are going to have multiple uses. I use red to indicate if it's on order, and once I get it, it turns green. But in fields next to the box, I have places where I can list who I ordered it from. And sometimes if you order 5 figures at a time, trust me, you will forget what's coming in or even if it was sent by the seller. So you'll want to place the seller's contact info as well and an area to put tracking numbers down.
There were a lot of instances where I had to contact the seller to remind them to send the package. They might have been out on holiday, they might have been away on work, so a friendly reminder does not hurt. So it helps to have that info. And yes, that did happen more than once to me. And it helps setting all of this up before you buy a single action figure, which leads to the next step: joining as many collection groups as you possibly can, and whatever toy line or genre that you're collecting. Once you've figured out a focus for your run and know exactly what you're after, this will help guide you onto what groups that you want to join.
I joined as many as I could at first, just to get a sense of what the community was like, what posts were going on, what was selling, for how much, and more importantly, I was mostly there to shut up and learn. About 2 months before I even bought a single action figure, all I did was troll these sites and read as many posts as I could.
And for me, it was Star Wars vintage collecting groups. And take all of this advice with a grain of salt. It's your collection, it's your rules. But since I am still fresh in my run and I've been doing this week after week, definitely consider everything that I'm saying in order to help shape your run. Which brings us to probably the biggest thing on this list. Step 5, the budget. And this is the most important thing before you start buying any figures, any playsets, any vehicles. It's very important to know how much you are willing to spend on that entire collection. And it's also gonna enable you to make a timeline based on your finances. And you never have to rush completing that entire collection. And it's gonna help you know how much to set aside per week, per month, per year, and how to do this run with financial responsibility. And doing this last step is key, because after doing your research on the figure list and what a full collection run looks like, after making your list on what figures, variants, and special figures that you want to include or exclude, after you've looked at videos and in the collecting groups, by now you must have noticed how much average pricing that these figures are going for. And in knowing the average price of things, that's helped me organize which figures I wanted to buy based on my personal finance. And if you're a serious collector, you should be able to look at any figure on your collection run and know about what average price the current market is asking for it. And by knowing average market prices, that's gonna help you determine if it's a good deal or if it's an overinflated price. And the way that I like to research this is pretty much in a 3-step process.
Number 1, I check the sold listings on eBay to find out what the recent sales were for a given figure. Always take into consideration the condition of the figure and never consider prices of items that haven't sold. You want as much sold data as you can. Looking at a couple of figures and thinking you know the price can lead you to the wrong conclusion.
So this is where I use another tool.
Number 2, Star Wars Tracker. And obviously this app is for Star Wars vintage action figures, but other lines have similar apps and databases as well. Star Wars Tracker collects final sales data from eBay and lists that out as data points so you can see at a glance hundreds or even thousands of data points. By checking eBay for recent sales, then coming here to verify data trends, you can start getting a clear picture of how much the current market values really are.
Number 3, collecting groups. And this is one of the main reasons I wanted you to join these groups apart from the community and educational aspect of it. On these collecting groups, they tend to avoid some fees by selling direct from collector to collector. And true, you might have to incur some PayPal fees and shipping fees, but sometimes it's a lot less what eBay or other stores are charging online. So let's take Facebook for instance.
So in your preferred group, do a search for what action figure you want to collect. Figures will come up. Always look at the date and try to stick with items that have been sold at least a month ago, 2 months at the most. Any further than that, and you might get unrealistic data. And always look at figure condition. By looking at these collector to collector prices, you set a good rounded data point that paints a complete picture.
And you can always go to your local toy shop to check out prices as well. But just know that unless you haggle prices down a bit, some owners of these shops are gonna mark up prices to make a profit. And there's nothing wrong with asking for a lower price, especially if you know what the average market price is. But this is where knowing those data points comes in handy. And I would never set foot inside a store without knowing those prices, because sometimes that leads to me overpaying for things. And not every store is gonna mark up the collectibles to an unreasonable amount. But unfortunately, I've seen that happen, and with figures and vehicles and playsets, that aren't that nice looking and that are not in mint condition. So that's why if you arm yourself with that data, know those prices, there was never a case where I've offered a store owner a legit price based on what I thought was a fair market value. And that only happens when you know what's up with those prices. So recapping all of it.
Number 1, focus your collection run. Decide what specific line you want and stick to it until your run is done. Number 2, watch content about that collection. There is nothing wrong with doing as much research as you possibly can. Plus, you'll discover some cool content creators in your genre. Number 3, make your checklist and use reference photos. Add boxes to know what you ordered, need, or have at a glance, and add extra text areas where you can add info like seller or store info, tracking numbers, price estimations on what it may cost, and eventually what you paid for it. Number 4, join collecting groups. Seeing what other collectors are doing will be invaluable to you. It will help immerse yourself into that culture, nomenclature, and prices of what your collection could be. Number 5, make a budget. And by using sites such as eBay, Star Wars Tracker, and the Facebook groups, it will give you a good average of what your figures are gonna cost.
And it's better to know all of this and be financially responsible than get too deep and be in a financial rut. And I know that some of these tips may sound like a lot of work, but honestly for me, it's part of the whole fun of collecting. And doing all of that legwork and research made the collecting more fun. And I know that at the end of the day, it's still just about collecting toys, but there's also the fun of the hunt, getting the great deals. And by keeping yourself organized, focused, and knowing exactly what you need, it really upped the enjoyment factor for me and it took the stress out. And a lot of collectors told me that they experienced a lot of stress because they didn't have a plan or budget or know what the heck they were doing before they started their runs. And regardless, it's your collection, your rules. So if you use this information, shape it in the way that you want your collection shaped. And just have fun, be responsible, and obviously connect with that inner child that once wanted these toys.
So today, I'm gonna practice what I preach and get an action figure that I researched, and one that I can hopefully get a great deal on. So I'm nearing the end of my loose action figure journey, so it's getting easier to know the ones that I exactly need. So today, I'm gonna go on the hunt for a B-Wing pilot.
The B-Wing pilot was first available in Wave 2 of the Return of the Jedi toys on the 77 card backs. And according to the Imperial Gunnery, this figure came with the blue-gray Endor blaster. And there's about 4 very slight variants with this figure, mostly coming in the different details in the helmet wire, with the Lily Letty variant having a darker red mold color than the other factories. Other variant details among those figures are eyes looking in different directions, smooth or ribbed collars, 3 or 4 vertical sections on the chest plate, and I could honestly fill a whole hour of these slight variations, so I'm gonna have to come back after I finish my entire run and do figure focuses, especially on this figure.
But for now, let's see how much this figure is in today's market prices. And if you're watching this 2 months from now or 20 years from now, I'm showing you some steps that I use to get today's market valuations. So let's look on Star Wars Tracker first.
For a complete loose figure, highs are coming in at an average of $70 and lows at about $45. And looking at recent final sale prices on eBay, it's basically matching what Star Wars Tracker listed, with prices from $46 for a complete figure all the way to $68. But you have to look out for deals that look too good to be true, because most of the time they are listed with reproduction accessories. And finally, looking at prices on Facebook. Not too many B-Wing pilots were being sold recently, but the ones that were coming in at around $40 to $50 for loose complete versions. And I found a seller on eBay who is selling 2 complete variants of the B-Wing pilot. And looking at the figures and talking to the seller, I wanted to place one in my case and one to send off for a grade, and I wanted to make sure that one of them would grade at least at an 80, so I asked the seller for some extra pics so I can see the smaller details. After liking what I saw, I picked up both of them for a total of $145.46 with shipping and tax included. The variations mostly come in the chest plate features with different mold and paint applications. I made a decision as to which one I I'm gonna place in my case and which one I decided to send off for a grade. And once I start my total grade run, I'm gonna show me sending in this figure for a grade and why I decided on that particular figure. Both figures are very nice, and this figure, in my opinion, is one of the nicest designed figures from Kenner with the bright red and the detail in the chest plate. So let's cross off this figure from our list that we got from an eBay seller for $72.73, and let's also mark this off our grading run list for $72.73 as well, and mark that as ready for grading, or RFG. And let's place the figure for grading inside our action figure drawer until it's ready to be sent off. And finally, let's place our display figure in our collector display case.
And I'm getting ready to do a huge giveaway. I'm giving away this case from Collector Displays. So to be eligible to win, subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on Instagram, and follow Collector Displays on Instagram. All of the links are down in the description of this video. So stay tuned and good luck, everybody. And I hope episodes like this really help you out, no matter if you're starting a run or if you're already knee deep in one, or if you're organizing a collection that you finished a long time ago. And also, let me know what line you're collecting and if these episodes are helping you out. And please visit PadawanCollector.com. Not only will you find blogs, reference photos, and access to buy collecting supplies, but I also have free collecting checklists, exactly like the ones I use. They won't be free for long though, so make sure you head over to get yours now at the PadawanCollector.com. And if you found this video interesting, please hit that like button. That does support the channel. And if you want to see more Star Wars collecting content from me, please consider subscribing. And also, hitting that notification bell so you know when episodes go live. I post videos every Sunday with bonus content throughout the week. And as always, my friends, thank you, and I will see you next time.
And that's it. That's the end.
If you're new to the channel, check out the welcome video, or just check out the next episode. And please subscribe if you want to follow the journey. And remember, there is no shame in being a Padawan.